And before I go and fully get into the story, I want to go and remind you all about a recent controversy that has occurred, something that has happened about a month ago, and maybe it is still fresh in your memory. And that is in regards to the Legend of Aang controversy, when there was a hacker who went into Paramount Systems and they leaked the entire movie online, and it just became a massive mess where everybody involved got a massive L. You got you got Paramount, who was a massive failure on that, mainly because of the fact that now their security has been exposed to be very flawed, and that it is their movie in particular that actually got into one of the biggest movie leaks in recent years. You got the people who made The Legend of Aang and the animators and artists and the cast and crew and stuff like that, that they received a major fail on it because all the hard work that they have spent years putting onto it, it was all for naught. It now just became a massive waste now that the movie got leaked online and anybody could just go and download it. So it just really unceremoniously got released long before its official release in October, let alone before we would see any official clip through like a teaser or a trailer or anything like that. And also, you got the cartoon community that received a big fail because not only did their actions of downloading and pirating the movie, not only did it show massive disrespect to the people working on it, where it really shows that especially animation Twitter just doesn't care about any animators or artists or any of the people who work in the animation industry in the first place, but it also reveals that they don't know what they're doing in their crusade against major studios. Like, they wanted to do a protest against Paramount to go and say, like, this is what you get for not releasing it in theaters and just on that stupid Paramount Plus and and all that kind of crap. But in reality, they're not doing anything to go and hurt Paramount. Instead, they just went after, they ended up hurting the animators in the process while not doing much towards Paramount. And if they're doing nothing towards Paramount with that little piece right there, imagine the stuff that they're doing towards Disney. It's literally doing no damage to them, and they end up indirectly hurting the artists and animators in the process. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up, considering that it's been a few weeks since that incident occurred, you would think that people have learned their lesson since that time. You would think that people actually knew that if this occurred again, then they'll know better on what not to do in order to be more respectful to the artists and animators who have worked on that particular project. You would think they would learn their lesson not to go and enable the leaks and really cause like another big mess like that. But alas, it has happened again, where a highly anticipated animated project got leaked, and not only do toxic animation fans would go and they would blindly eat that up, but also they use that as an excuse to attack those who made the cartoon. And what's worse, it's actually regarding one of the most anticipated indie project out there. So of course, what I'm talking about is the Amazing Digital Circus. Yes, it has been confirmed that the final episode of the Amazing Digital Circus was leaked online. Now, we don't have any confirmation as I am recording this in terms of who has done it, but what we do know is that someone leaked the Brazilian Portuguese version of the final episode of the Amazing Digital Circus online, And just like with The Legend of Aang, it went viral. And you know there are some Digital Circus fans that would just go and immediately eat that up and already talking about the spoilers that are within. And by the way, I'm just going to go and tell you right now, no, I'm not going to be going into any spoilers. I'm not going to be discussing what happened in the final episode or anything like that. So don't you worry, this will be a spoiler-free discussion about what happened with the final episode of the Amazing Digital Circus. So yes, from there you got those fans who would go and they would consume the final episode. They would consume all the information and all the spoilers about how the Amazing Digital Circus ended. And their reactions, well, believe it or not, they're not happy. But it's not that they're not happy towards the leaks. They're not, they're not upset over the fact that the leaks did happen or that someone hacked into the systems in order to go and leak the movie. No, that's not what they're mad about. What they're mad about is the ending itself and that they believe it sucked. It is not up to their standard and they've been raging like crazy, especially on Twitter. In fact, there is a post here from Pop Rant that actually presented some examples of people raging out on Twitter and expressing their anger, not just towards the episode itself, but also towards Glitch Productions and towards the creator, Gooseworx, which, oh boy, let me get into that later. Like, one example is this one person on Twitter where he states that in a non-spoiler review, the ending is terrible. We learn literally nothing. Nothing really happens in the entire episode except one thing, and that one thing is so poorly written, stupid, and pointless that it retroactively ruins the entire series. And this is just one example. Like, you got another one trying to say, cancel your tickets, do not waste your money, discussing in terms of those pre-sale tickets for the big screen debut of the Amazing Digital Circus. There's also another person saying that it is the worst finale they have ever seen, and even another one saying, fuck Glitch for taking the greed route. And that's just a few examples. I'm sure that if you go on Twitter and you write down the Amazing Digital Circus finale, you'll see a lot of these types of angry rants going on. So you might be wondering, though, what is the reaction of the creator Gooseworx? I can imagine that, yeah, it is troubling and pretty shocking when a project that you've been working on, and a very anticipated one, considering that it is the finale, that people want to know, how does the creator feel about this entire situation? Well, as it turns out, the one reaction that Gooseworx did, she actually replied to someone asking, and she went, who cares? Now, since then, that reply was deleted, but oh man, did that immediately add fuel to the fire that is the rage from Amazing Digital Circus fans. And that was the moment where they went all out in terms of their attacks and their harassments towards Gooseworx, especially with the fact that they hate the finale and now they hate her for making the finale and being apathetic about the whole situation. Now, since then, though, Gooseworx did put out a full reply about what she just said there. And just to go and read you from my source on the direct, hold on a sec. It says right over here where she stated on Blue Sky, I know people are upset with my response, which is fine, but I kind of just wanted to make a cartoon and it ended up being way more trouble than it's worth. I really just can't keep my heart in this thing anymore. It's gotten too much bigger than me, and I probably shouldn't be the figurehead. So that's basically where she is at right now. Like, after all the abuse, the harassment, and the attacks that she has received from the fan base, she's pretty much at the point where she's like, you know what? I just don't care anymore. I just want it to be done, and I want to move on from it. Now, I will go and express my personal opinions or just my comments on that a little later, but before I continue, I just want to go and make one big clarification, because there are still some people out there who don't seem to get the idea that what I'm talking about is not generalizing. Now, when I go and talk about the cartoon community, or when I go and talk about the Amazing Digital Circus fandom in this case, I'm not talking about literally everyone, okay? This is not generalizing where I'm talking about all animation fans or even all Amazing Digital Circus fans out there. I am specifically talking about the ones who are toxic. I am specifically talking about the ones who cannot control their emotions, the ones who are still unironically using Twitter, and those who prioritize the cartoons themselves over the people who would go and make them. I'm talking about the toxicity that is within. And yes, they could definitely be a minority, but it is still a problematic and loud minority. So again, keep that in mind. And I will be repeating this, that when I talk about the cartoon community, or when I talk about the Amazing Digital Circus fandom, I'm not talking about everyone. I am talking about those who are toxic within. Now, with that said, holy crap, am I the only one who feels like I'm starting to have a hard time to catch up on what's been going on with all these controversies related to the Amazing Digital Circus and the outrage from the fandom? I feel like now, as we are getting closer to the finale and its official release, to which, by the way, it is going to be coming out on June 4th on the big screen, and then it will be coming out on YouTube on June 19th, I can't help but honestly feel like it's starting to be difficult to go and catch up, because like now there's just more and more things that are causing outrage within the fandom, and like you have to go and like try to catch up. It's like, wait, what is it this time now? You know, like even this year alone, there's been like a whole bunch that's been going on. Of course, there was the big controversy in which toxic fans would be heavily harassing and attacking Gooseworx, down to the point where the creator had to go and delete her Reddit account just so she could separate herself from that toxicity. And then afterwards, there was also the announcement that the Amazing Digital Circus, the last act, or the final episode, is going to be making its big screen debut, to which from there, yes, there are fans who were excited, but then as a result, the reactions turned out to be split, because then there are also those toxic fans who are upset of the fact that it's going to first be released on the big screen instead of just being on YouTube, to which at the point they would be complaining about, oh, Glitch is just being greedy. Oh, now there's going to be spoilers before it comes out on YouTube and on Netflix and stuff like that. So of course there's also that controversy going on. And then and then after that, now I will say I didn't fully look into it all that much, but I did hear that there was another controversy in which there was a booth that Glitch Productions had at a convention, and then you got a couple of dumbass fans who came in and they were streaming themselves and saying a whole bunch of racist things, even shouting out the N-word and stuff like that. Chadwell, by the way, maybe you can help me out and add some context into that. Like, I'm not fully sure about the details, but I heard that there was something like that in which it happened. So just want to know, like, maybe there's something that I did get wrong in terms of the context, but just want to fully know with what happened with that whole thing. So there was that, or maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I heard something completely different, or someone actually meant, or someone did write down a response. Apparently, Plain Rock is the one entering the booth and said the N slur and got kicked out of the con. So, okay, so there is that. And I mean, maybe that one isn't necessarily fully connected to the Amazing Digital Circus or Glitch Productions, but considering that the brand was still heavily attached to it. And I mean, the imagery of the Amazing Digital Circus was still involved. That still kind of was involved. That's still kind of like a part of it. Or, oh, hold on a sec. There's another bit of context in here. It says here they were saying slurs because it was based on a joke that happened on stream that Ashley Nichols and Michael Kovac did years ago that they apologized for, but it resurfaced and stupid fans like that were saying it at the booth. Oh, okay, so it's controversy that is already resolved, but then you got douchebag fans that still want to try to make that a thing. Okay, I'm actually quite familiar with that. I see what's going on. Now I'm getting a better idea of like what that whole thing is. So like you got all those that are happening, and then you got this as well, in which the final episode got leaked. Now the spoilers are out there and they've been going viral on websites like Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, and all that kind of stuff. And people decided that they would be mad at Gooseworx for it. Now, can I just go and mention here, it's been nuts with all the controversies that have been frequently happening due to the fandom of the Amazing Digital Circus. But may I say that there is quite an obvious hypocrisy that is going on here, something that I find to be absolutely ridiculous with why this is even happening in the first place. Because it's kind of weird how when it comes to the toxic fans, just a few weeks ago, they were complaining about the theatrical release of the last act, and they were being upset over the fact that now there's a possibility that spoilers are going to be coming out much earlier than they would when it's going to be released on YouTube. So they're just getting mad at the fact that, oh crap, now it's going to be released earlier than what is planned on YouTube. Man, Glitch is just being greedy, like all that kind of crap that is going on. And then you got this happening, in which not only did it end up getting leaked, and technically the release is much earlier than what it was planned to be. Like now the spoilers came out in the second half of May instead of early June. But on top of that, you also got people like those same angry fans. They would just go and eat it up. And now they're just angrily ranting about the stuff that they have read about it, which I'll get into that a little bit later. But like, it is honestly a big question of how many of those angry fans and how many of those people attacking Gooseworx have actually seen that leak of the Amazing Digital Circus last act, especially when it's apparently the leak is in Portuguese. So yeah, there is honestly that whole bit of hypocrisy. And honestly, I gotta go and ask, how the fridge why would you be mad at Gooseworx when the person that you should clearly be mad at is in regards to the leaker? Shouldn't you be mad at the person who leaked the movie in the first place to put out the finale much earlier than planned, and now suddenly causing all the spoilers to just go out and about, and now people know exactly what happened to certain characters and the outcome of all this going on? Shouldn't you be mad at him? Or shouldn't you be mad at them? Shouldn't you be mad at the leaker? Why waste your energy on freaking Gooseworx? It's ridiculous. And honestly, speaking of ridiculous, this is honestly why it is so frustrating and stupid to see this even happening again. Because of course, as I mentioned, this is not the first time that fans would go and be completely outraged and they would unleash their anger towards Gooseworx, and even down to the point of straight up harassing her just because of her creative decisions. This is why whenever I would see all of this controversy, or like when there's something going on that's causing a massive outburst in the cartoon community. Like whenever you see like fans getting so angry about something, I step back and look into the big picture, because honestly, the context of specifically why they are mad, the grand majority of the time, it is just nothing burgers. It's literally just things that, like, honestly, they really don't matter. And it makes it extremely ridiculous when you step back and you see what is it that these fans are just massively mad about. This is why, honestly, and to bring back like other controversies that the cartoon community unleashed their anger towards, like, this is honestly why I find it completely stupid when animation fans raged out over just character designs. And we have seen this a couple of times, like with the Shrek 5 update because of that little teaser that came out last year, or even not too long ago with Disney's Hex, where people would go and like really unleash their frustration and their anger just because of such minor, harmless things, like reacting as if DreamWorks switching up the design of Shrek or Disney maintaining their traditional style is the reason why gas prices have been so high lately. Like, honestly, this is where I don't care of what the reason is. I am focusing fully onto the behavior, and it is unacceptable and just straight up dumb. Now, I am not taking away anybody's opinions. Maybe you can look at the new Shrek 5 designs, or you can see the designs of Hex, and you might not be a fan of it. Maybe you don't like it. You're not into that look, and that's perfectly okay. If you have an opinion of it, I'm not going to take that away from you. It's fine to like it or not like it. But if your reaction is to go into the massive extremes and you literally go into that reactionary route of throwing a massive temper tantrum, that's where you honestly lose me. That's where honestly I do not care, because you're ranting over nothing burgers. And it's the same thing that we are seeing right here with the Amazing Digital Circus, and especially with how Gooseworx is being treated here. It's the fact that people are raging out and unleashing their rage just because of creative decisions that they don't agree with. I mean, again, you can have your opinion in terms of the Amazing Digital Circus and how the ending is and what the spoilers say and stuff like that. And maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe the ending does suck, and that's fine. You can have your opinion on that, but don't go acting insane about it, because this is the kind of reaction that honestly, my response is just take your medications and get a job, because no mentally stable person who actually has actual responsibilities would go and behave this way over something like, the last episode of the Amazing Digital Circus did not meet my expectations. And this is honestly why I do not blame Gooseworx for her initial reaction. I do not blame her if she doesn't care at all about the Amazing Digital Circus, and that she would rather want to distance herself from the entire franchise altogether. I get it, because I'm just going to say, in my opinion, she does not deserve this treatment whatsoever. It is honestly way too extreme. Like, this is why would anyone would even go this far to express massive rage over just creative decisions that they may not necessarily agree with? And not to mention, by the way, to go back into the fact that this is a Portuguese Brazilian dub that got leaked. How many of those people actually saw it? Are you mad because you saw the leaked episode? Or are you mad because of what you read on Twitter about the little list of like, oh, well, in the spoilers, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened? Like, honestly, no. That, like at that point, if you haven't actually seen the final episode, then your opinion to me is dead. It doesn't matter, because you're just basing it off of whatever you would go and read on the internet. And at that point, that just tells me that you're the kind of person who would be gullible enough to believe in whatever misinformation. I don't care how accurate it is. I don't care how accurate the spoilers may be on what's been said about the Amazing Digital Circus finale. And in that regards, I just got to go and say that if you haven't done the proper research to actually see the finale yourself, if you haven't seen it, then honestly, I don't care, and you are not worth listening. You're just raging over frickin' nothing. There's got to be a fine line where you got to say it's just a frickin' cartoon, and you're going to be fine either way. Now, there is still more that I want to go and express, but I know that I don't have a lot of time before the next ad comes in. So I'm going to go and take a break right now, and I will continue with what I have to say about this. And this is going to highlight the bigger picture of how this is going to negatively impact not just the series itself, not just Glitch Productions, but indie animation in general. And yes, don't worry, folks. You will have time to have your comments be read from the chat wall. So we're just going to go and have a bit of a refresher on the ad breaks, and we'll be back after this. Welcome back. Now, we did get a little bit of a moment to just cool off from that scenario right there, but just to slowly get back into it. This is honestly a situation where now I feel like it is growing to become more and more concerning. And it's not just on the fact that this is happening to the Amazing Digital Circus, but it's the fact that this kind of fandom toxicity is now becoming more prevalent to indie animation. And this is where I find to be the biggest concern. And this is honestly the biggest takeaway that I have gotten from this whole controversy with the Amazing Digital Circus, not just with the leaks, but also with everything that has been going on with the fandom and with the series and all that kind of stuff. Because honestly, I feel like the biggest enemy of indie animation, the one thing that it is currently holding it back from having a bigger success, from reaching wider audiences, from having new creators finding even greater success, the one thing that it is holding it back, it's not major corporations, it's not Hollywood and the system that they've built with animation and entertainment. It's not Disney, it's the toxicity of the cartoon community. It's the issues with fandoms that is the one thing that it is holding indie animation back from becoming bigger and better, or even worse, it's the toxicity of the cartoon community that is currently causing the most harm to indie animation. And like I said before, yes, I know that this only represents a minority of the cartoon community. In fact, this only represents a minority of the fandom of the Amazing Digital Circus. I know that there are still plenty. In fact, most animation fans and most fans of the Amazing Digital Circus are still great people. They're very supportive in the craft, and they're very supportive of people like Gooseworx. However, the thing is, though, is that when it comes to the toxicity of the cartoon community and the toxicity of the Amazing Digital Circus fandom, they are becoming louder. They are becoming more prominent. They are still large enough to make a significant negative impact where it is harming the craft, it is harming creators, it is harming other fans. Like, it is doing so much damage. Like, it is it is a loud minority, but it is a dangerously loud minority that is still causing a lot of harm out there. And that's the thing that honestly is concerning me the most, is that now that we're seeing more and more in this, and now it's becoming more of an infamous thing, that this is a serious problem that indie animation creators are facing, because keep in mind, it's not just Gooseworx that's facing this, but we're like, need I have to go and talk about Vivziepop and all the bullcrap that she is facing? Like, oh boy, like I could make a whole episode of the podcast just talking about the amount of hate and harassment that Vivziepop would go and get. Poor Vivian on that. But at the same time, though, as we are getting more, new successful indie shows, they're also getting more of a taste of that toxicity, where that's also ramping up quick. And a good example of this is Gameoverse. I mean, Gameoverse just got released not that long ago, and there's so far only the pilot. The only problem, however, is that even though, yeah, sure, maybe now Gameoverse is just celebrating its success and that a lot of people, most people have been highly enjoying it, but I've also seen on the internet a lot of discourses and a lot of posts in which people have been ranting about the series. And I mean, it's one thing to go and express criticism, and that's perfectly fine. But then there's also this other level in which I could see where the toxicity is starting to brew, and it could just pile up more and more and more to the point where it's going to be quite dangerous. So yeah, like it's not going to be hard to imagine with how things are right now. With Gameoverse, it could possibly bubble up into something that could be much worse, and that the fandom outrage and backlash could end up being the same with what we have seen with the Amazing Digital Circus. And I mean, and to go into the bigger picture, like with the cartoon community, unfortunately, when it comes to their toxicity that they've been offering, this, like, I feel like this is just another example with what we have been seeing with like this kind of controversy related to the cartoon community. Like what I brought up with stuff like Gameoverse and Amazing Digital Circus, that's in regards to indie animation. This is something that they claim to love the most, even compared to the mainstream stuff. But even that is only a fraction compared to what we have been seeing so far with how they would treat things like with Disney, and even with other studios, like with DreamWorks, like with Sony, and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, yeah, sure, it's one thing, like in terms of all the toxicity when it comes to the Disney hate, but then there's also like with the other studios and with the other controversies with people doing the exact same kind of hatred and harassment. Like we have definitely seen that last year with the animators at Sony Pictures Animation with Fix. And that was like not long after K-pop Demon Hunters was starting to become a massive phenomenon. And this is not even to mention that honestly, I feel like DreamWorks is also going to be getting that. Like you got some people who wanted to do the same thing where they would go and attack Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, and try to say that this is just absolute garbage, despite the fact that, for God's sakes, you're attacking a movie made for freaking preschoolers. How pathetic is that? But not to mention also, I can immediately predict the future, and I can tell you that the toxic animation fans, they are ready to go and throw their hatred and harassment towards anybody who would be open to say that they have worked on the Cocomelon movie. That's why, honestly, I know that when people are using Forgotten Island to go and weaponize and like use that to go and hate Disney more on like whatever Disney will have prepared, whether it be with the Moana remake or with Hex, like, you know, it's going to be disingenuous, because just like how all the K-pop Demon Hunters fans who use the movie to go and attack Elio, you know that the Forgotten Island fans who will go and attack Disney with it, they're also going to go and attack the Cocomelon movie. So I'm just saying. So basically, with what I'm trying to explain here is that with what we are seeing with the Amazing Digital Circus is that this is just one of many examples of how the toxicity with the cartoon community has just been getting worse and worse. And if they don't get accountability, it's only going to progressively get worse to the point that the entirety of the cartoon community is just going to completely implode in itself. And that's why, honestly, the best call of action to do in this case is that we need to hold the toxicity accountable. It's not enough to just go and call this out. We need to actually see some legit accountability, some consequences to the toxicity that is going on, and to the toxicity that is causing harm towards animators and towards creators like Gooseworx. Like, again, if we don't see action being taken against the toxicity, then the toxicity is only going to grow from there. It's pretty much like a cancer where it's just going to be bubbling up into something bigger, down to the point where ultimately it's not going to be cool to be an animation fan anymore. That being a cartoon fan on social media would actually be considered even cringier than the reputation of what Disney adults would have. So this is honestly just a fair warning that I'm putting out right now. And that's why, honestly, when it comes to this story in particular, I feel like it requires a lot more time. And in fact, I just want to go and bring up this quote, actually, again, coming from Pop Rant. And it actually does describe something very well in terms of the harassment that Gooseworx got and the dangers of fandom outrage. The situation reflects a larger issue affecting many modern internet creators. Independent animation projects can suddenly gain enormous popularity, but creators are often unprepared for the pressure that follows. Online fandoms move fast, and once leaks, rumors, and expectations collide, creators can become the target of constant criticism from every direction. For Gooseworx, the pressure appears especially intense because she serves as the writer, composer, and the creative lead behind the series. Fans often connect directly with her online presence, which means backlash becomes deeply personal very quickly. Previous incidents involving fan criticism have already led her to step away from some social media spaces before this latest controversy, highlighting the whole Reddit incident in which she had to quit Reddit because of the massive harassment that she was getting from that website in particular. So in that regards, I really do wish Gooseworx the best. And honestly, I'm just going to go and say she does not deserve this. She does not deserve the amount of hate, backlash, and harassment that she has gotten over the fact that all she did was made a freaking cartoon in the first place. And I've seen some people brought up a very good point that you would see some people out there like Scott Cawthon who would easily get away with his controversy with the fact that he had fueled a lot of donations and gave a lot of money to Republican politicians like Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and many more, and may still be doing so today. But a lot more Five Nights at Freddy's fans will give him a pass, despite the fact that he has been exposed as the J.K. Rowling of video games, more so than with Gooseworx, because this could also bring up another massive factor where the toxicity of the cartoon community and the toxicity of the Amazing Digital Circus fandom might have some misogyny and even some transphobia from within. Like, this also brings up about the question in terms of how the cartoon community, especially those who can be toxic, how they view inclusivity in the first place, and especially in terms of trans people, women creators, and all that kind of stuff. Like, honestly, it like this whole thing really does open up a massive can of worms here, where it really shows that in terms of both the toxicity that is brewing in that particular fandom of the series and in the cartoon community, there's a lot more problematic aspects that honestly need to be discussed, and that maybe some of those fans know it, but they're desperately trying to hide it in a desperate attempt so that they wouldn't be canceled. So yeah, honestly, with all this, it's just a massive mess. But again, it needs to be talked about. And honestly, if you want to go and save indie animation, then you need to hold the cartoon community's toxicity accountable. And again, might as well repeat this in case people forgot. This doesn't represent everyone in the cartoon community, and it doesn't represent everyone in the fan base of the Amazing Digital Circus. It is a loud minority, but it is a dangerously loud minority where their anger and their behavior is becoming very destructive. So yeah, hopefully we will see accountability for that type of behavior, not just on the Amazing Digital Circus, but in general, especially or including regarding the Disney hate, because I got a feeling that honestly, that's been a massive influence to why we have been seeing all this backlash. Like those people who think it's all cool and trying to capitalize on the Disney hate, they are playing a factor with what's been happening right now in the indie animation scene where creators are getting harassed. So yeah, like honestly, if you want to save indie animation, you got to call out all forms of toxicity that is going on in the cartoon community. And yes, this even includes the toxicity in revolving the Disney hate. So with that said, now I will go into the chat wall and I'll go and ask you all, what is your comment regarding all this? Because I know I've said enough on my part, but now I would like to ask you all what you think. I am a fan of the Amazing Digital Circus, and this is awful. It's bad enough that the finale ended up getting leaked, but the fact that people are doing this again and going after Gooseworx and the people who worked on it is flat out disgusting. Seriously, this really does continue to show the toxicity of the cartoon community, and honestly, the people who think indie animation is going to save the industry, that will never happen as long as this kind of toxicity is around. Exactly, man. Because the thing is, if you like people who really think indie animation is on such a high pedestal and it will save animation altogether, I don't think it's really happening when some animation fans are preventing that from happening and are doing stuff like this, like harassing Gooseworx just because of her creative decisions, and that's it. Let's see. I'm not surprised that this would happen again, and it's with the Amazing Digital Circus and its fan base because of freaking course. And also, what you said about Scott Cawthon's heinous crime of using the FNAF money to donate to Trump and his cronies, and yes, of course, it still shatters my heart for the people he is and what the fans of the franchise have become. I can't wait to finish my own take on the series FNAF Tales so I can leave the franchise behind me. Exactly, man. Like, honestly, I think even fans of Five Nights at Freddy's know that Scott Cawthon and the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is highly problematic. They just don't want to let go of that love for Freddy Fazbear and stuff like that, because without it, they would be nothing, considering that many of them have revolved their entire personalities over obsessing over the franchise. Anyways, artists and writers of the Digital Circus need all the love we can give because they worked so hard, and yet everyone's being my 2-year niece after her nap, whine, and me reaching for a glass. Seriously, what does it take to give them all a timeout or a permanent ban? Then be better people and be kinder to the world, because it's the only one you've got, and there's no rockets to space. There's no billionaires giving you a free ride. Grow a heart before you grow some balls. Wait, did I say this before? You probably have. I mean, like, we've seen this happen again and again and again, rather it be with indie animated projects or with mainstream animated movies and stuff like that. It has happened, and it will still be happening as long as the toxicity of the cartoon community is not facing any consequences. Let's see now. Honestly, I have no words. The finale is leaked and people get mad at the creator. Where is the logic? I'm still planning on watching the finale in cinemas next week, and regardless if it's great or doesn't stick the landing, I'll always be respectful to Goose's works and vision. And honestly, to see this happen to Gooseworx is heartbreaking, and this should be addressed and called out by many other big names in indie animation. Exactly. And not only that, but I feel like, honestly, like even some I feel like YouTubers should also be calling this out as well. Like, this is if they're not going to be listening to the creators, then maybe they'll be listening to the YouTubers they always listen to. Like, I am hoping that maybe people like Cartoonshi or Saberspark or maybe Shafrillas or several others as well, like, hopefully they're taking a stance and like they're fully addressing it to call these people out, because I know that with those guys and their bigger platforms, that they can probably be a big help in order to go and provide accountability to the toxicity of the cartoon community. Let's see what we got. And also, by the way, I almost forgot to mention, but if you're not a fan of the finale, that's perfectly fine. I'm not taking away anybody's criticism towards the finale. Maybe it can suck, and if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. You could think it's bad, you could think it's garbage. I'm not going to go and take that away from you, but do so in a way that is respectful and that you can have your behavior in check. Because if you're going to be ranting out and you're going to go in full outrage mode because you think that's going to get all the better, that's going to get easier likes for you than on stuff like Twitter and stuff like that, then no, I'm not going to freaking listen to you whatsoever. You don't deserve to be listened to if you cannot control your emotions and if your behavior is just going to be all whacked out over literally nothing. All right? Stop emotionally blasting over nothing burgers. I think that's one of the big lessons of today here. Anyways, when you mention the Aang movie, it reminds me of two recent Nick-related news. One post said that Jorge Gutierrez is still planning his El Tigre revival and got the blessings of Vasquez and Renzetti to include Zim and Teenage Robot. The other is a rumor that Patrick will make his last appearance in SpongeBob. Guess which is more controversial to fans? Oh, God. I don't even want to know, guys. I don't even, at that point, like, I'm already pissed off of what's happening with the Amazing Digital Circus. I don't even want to know with which one people are mad at there. Okay, anyways, the fandom online is so bad that it's now a post-apocalyptic world that even Mad Max refuses to survive. Gooseworx 100% doesn't deserve it at all. This year, when it comes to animation fandom online, it's now a post-apocalyptic nightmare I'm glad to avoid. While I'm now hanging out with the amazing artists and animators that are freaking saints and extremely likable, just support artists is what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say. Do that instead. Okay, what the heck is going on here? Well, this is going to be an interesting one. Agree to disagree. Why can't we just leave it at that and cut the people out there some slack? If I wanted to put my dream project into reality, I would choose to keep my work under key and lock. To be honest, Matt, if they got a problem with my decision to keep my project from being leaked or leak even just a little bit, then I got just one word to spell and say about it: tough. Capital TOUGH. Tough. My project, my decision. That is my response. Exactly, man. Like, maybe there are some things. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, that's one thing that I do fear from all this, is that, like, with the constant controversies and with the constant fandom rage that we see being given to Vivzy Pop and Gooseworx, I fear that, honestly, this is going to be a big detriment from people to want to go and actually produce their own projects, because sometimes they can be so intense that it could discourage them from pursuing their own dreams or pursuing animation. I mean, I'm sure there are many people out there who dream about making the next big successful cartoon. But I know at the same time, there are going to be plenty of people who dream about that, but then they see the kind of backlash and hate that Gooseworx and VivziePop would go and get constantly, by the way, and they would just be like, you know what, I'm going to back out on it. And that is how we would see a massive decline on indie animation, or at least the amount that would be produced, because there are going to be people who are not willing to go and face the possible backlash that comes with making a famous indie cartoon. So there is that consequence as well. This is honestly sad to see Gooseworx getting harassed by the fans. I may be a fan of the Amazing Digital Circus, but I would never harass Gooseworx like this. This is so disheartening to hear because who cares what toxic fans think? If you hate it, that's fine. Just don't go raging over the creators' works and the creators themselves, because this is just outrageously way too toxic. Also, speaking of Glitch, AniMat, have you watched the Game Overs pilot? If you have, what are your thoughts on it and favorite character? Well, I mean, I definitely have heard of it, and I mean, I am all in support of people like Ross O'Donovan and Aaron Hansen to go and make this series. But I'm going to be very honest, and it is kind of related to this subject, but I'm going to be like transparent with you all. I haven't seen it yet. And the reason is because I'm not sure if I want to fully get on board with an indie animation project, because I know that the possible discourses that would come from it would end up being toxic, just like with what we have been seeing with Helliverse, with the Amazing Digital Circus, and even with Glitch Productions in general. That's why, like, it's not just creators who would like step back from wanting to engage with it, but it's also like with audiences. It's like with people such as me, honestly, I don't know if I want to be on board with this, because I know that it would just end up going down a spiral that's just going to become an absolute nightmare. And I know I'm not the only one who would feel that way. So not only is the toxicity from the cartoon community a strong factor that could make people walk back from making more indie animation, but it's also a factor that could walk people away from watching more indie animation. Maybe one day I will. I'm not saying that I'm stepping away from it. And again, I fully support what Ross, Aaron, and the team at Glitch Productions are doing. But in terms of actually watching it, it's just something that I don't know if I feel safe to go and watch it because of the possible toxicity that will be coming with the fandom. So yeah, honestly, I know there's plenty of more comments that have been popping out because of this, but I just wanted to go and express my opinions on this whole factor. And again, this does not reflect on all animation fans or all fans of Digital Circus, but even though it may be coming from a minority, but it is a dangerously loud minority that need to be held accountable. We must take action to fight against this toxicity. If you want to save animation, if you want to save indie animation, then we need to stop the toxicity that is currently with the cartoon community, because if not, it is just going to become so much worse.